into Typescript. But first and foremost, it's important to know that decorators are still experimental into Typescript. Why? Because Typescript is a superset of JavaScript, and in JavaScript decorators are still experimental functions. So in order to use decorators into Typescript as well, we need to set this into our tsconfig.json, experimental decorators, to true, and then after that we are good to go. So after having said that, let's understand and know what decorators are. So a few things. Decorators you can be using different ways. So we have class decorators, we have method, we have property, parameter decorators, accessor decorators. I won't go through all of them today. I'll just go through the most used ones. So the first one we're gonna learn is class decorator. Class decorator is simply adding a decorator to your class. So step 1, we create the decorator. Decorator is just a normal function where you receive a target, and that target will have the properties of your class, in this case because this is a class decorator. So once I have my class, I will say add logger, and every time I instantiate this class person, it will instantly call logger, and logger will receive the target of this class, which is person. So every time we instantiate person, we will have class person is created. So into my step 3, I will do exactly that. I will instantiate my class without doing anything else and just calling on my terminal ts node ts-node index.ts, and class person is created. So this is the usability of decorators. You simply avoid having to, like doing a console log or having to redo that method many times. And it's useful for big and large applications. Why? Because of the code reusability, the separation of concerns. Because imagine like that, if you have to put this console or this function inside that class all the time in all of your classes, that kinda goes away with the separation of concern, which is your business logic shouldn't be together with your code. They should be separated. But also there's other things. Enhanced readability. As you can see over here, I don't need to call this function all the time, which enhance the readability, but also other things which I won't go through. We have also, after the class decorator, we have the method decorator. So the only difference between the class and the method decorator is that the method decorator, we use the decorator into the method. Exactly. So in this case, I have my log here, which I will say, well, receive arguments of my function and the result of my function. So I will have a class called calculator, and this class calculator will use the add log, which is the name of my function, and every time I call this function inside my instantiated class, it will trigger log. And I will go after that on why this is useful, why this enhance the code reusability and also enhance the readability. So I call this, as you can see, I instantiate my class calculator, and with calculator I call the method add, and then I give the two parameters, number and for, and then it says into my declarator here, my decorator, that arguments are 4 and the result is 8, which is correct. So why this is useful? Imagine you have a very large application where you receive thousands and thousands of clients per day. You want to have some sort of logging about your system, about your application, because oftentimes things break and you don't know what arguments and what the result and what parameters are being passed to your function, because there's people trying to hack your application, there's people trying to use in different ways or trying to put different parameters, and it's not their fault, but it's more about thinking how can you prevent that. A way to prevent that is using Typescript, because Typescript you can declare implicit and explicit types. So I think that's the difference from the just JavaScript. You have everything implicit but nothing explicit, but you can also declare explicit into JavaScript. It's just not common. So without further any more talking, let's go into the next one as well. We have our property decorator. So on the property decorator, I'll call the read only, which it will tell that my property is not modifiable, it's immutable, which means it cannot change my property to any other type. So I'll call a class person, and then I'll say my type name is read only. So whenever I set that into the constructor and I try to do an attempt of changing that to Bob, it will throw me an error. So I will just clear my terminal and then I'll call this. You see, cannot assign to read only property name of object person. So that's useful as well in case you want to make a private, like property where you don't want anyone to modify except the function or the class itself. So this is where also decorators are useful, not just for logging but also to changing types of the property. In this case we say readable is false, but if I remove this, you're gonna see that now the name is Bob. So this is why decorators are so useful. You don't need them just for logging, but you can use them for multiple reasons in different ways. Another common ways is any connection with the database. So if you had something that connects to the database and you want to make that secure and avoid, like multiple instances, like a singleton pattern, you can also do that using decorators. But that's all for today, guys. Thank you very much and bye bye.